All right, we are back, and Anthony, you've been in the industry for a long time with FANUC right now, but you've had a 20-year history, and we'd love to hear, a bit about your journey, how you got started, and where it's taking you today. In let's say the Cliff Notes version.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me here. I started. I'm out of Columbus, Ohio. Went to The Ohio State University as a mechanical engineer, so started that path. I jumped into mechanical design at ATS Ohio, did that for a couple years and got into more of the technical sales pretty quick. Realized I wanted to get out of that cube and get out and talk to people. And from there, did automation sales of all sorts of drives, motors, sensors, that kind of thing, and got into robotics with KUKA Robotics and was there for about 5 years. And now I've been at FANUC for the last 4 years. Working remote out of Columbus, Ohio.
And as a director of warehousing and logistics, and I think that's a question, Jake, you and I were chatting about this before the interview. It's one of those areas where we're curious, what's the state of, let's say, warehousing automation, if you will, right?
Yeah.
I've heard different things. It's further ahead or it's not as far ahead as factory automation. That's where we both came up through. So I'd love to get your perception on the state of things right now.
Sure. Yeah, the warehouse space is super exciting right now, right? So I took this role on and kind of running with the strategy for FANUC, partnerships, some of the startup stuff, the end customer. But it's really just getting started. I mean, we're just scratching the surface of the warehouse space from a 6-axis robot perspective. You can look at some of the AMR technology. It's a little further along, a little more mature in this space. But from a 6-axis robot perspective, really the sky's the limit, and the scalability is big, and that's why you see a lot of venture capital money coming in a big way.
Yeah, I want to talk about startups in a second, but I think the 6-axis robot, right? Describe that for people that are maybe just listening to this on audio. What does a 6-axis robot do? Like, what are the modalities in terms of that?
Sure. I mean, the 6-axis robot, if you look at it, that's the robot arm that you're seeing when you see an automotive line being built or body line, whether you're doing welding or assembly or that's that articulated arm that you see. Right now, you hear a lot of people talk about robotics, and they could be talking about an AMR, they could be talking about some other thing outside. So I'm going to make sure I'm clear on the 6-axis robot side. That's your articulated arm, and that's the robot FANUC's been building for over 40 years.
Yeah. And I think originally this conference was the AMR conference, and then they added the logistics part because they realized it's not just mobile robotics that's really impacting the warehouse industry. It's also industrial robots as well. And dive into the next question. As you're working with a lot of startup companies that are out there, as you're working with different companies to help develop solutions for them, what does that partnership look like as we're seeing, as you mentioned, more venture capitalist money coming into our industry? What do you see as that partnership, and how are you helping out companies?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you this, Jake. I looked at about, depends on what group of some of these startups you put together, but I put together about 20 of them that kind of fit our space with vision. There was over $2 billion of venture capital money, and I'm sure it's more than that now, coming into this market. So first of all, I'll say we've never seen anything like that in this manufacturing space before. So what we've done is we've taken an approach where we want to make sure that we're providing that scalability, right? That service first that FANUC provides, which we service our robots for the lifetime of the robot, to some of these smaller companies. So what we're trying to do is, right, all these guys are building some sort of AI. A lot of them started with AI, and they said, okay, what can we do with this? What can we do with this AI? Well, they said, we got the warehouse space. It has really tough problems, right? And it's also very scalable. So a lot of the applications out there are the same thing over and over and over, right? Whether you're in parcels, whether you're in retail, whether you're in 3PL, it's the same applications over and over. So we want to make sure that we're there as a partner for the startups, that they can work with us. We can help them through this process and provide that scalability, that service, that education that we do out in the industry of FANUC robots, and that more long-term approach.
So you're seeing a lot of these startups not just being another systems integrator or machine builder. These startups are leveraging artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning, and they're taking the FANUC robot as a tool to then deploy their solution. Why do you think Do you see a lot of the growth in the logistics industry happening right now because of the advancement in AI and machine learning, and then they're able to then take a six-axis robot that at one point in time was doing very repetitive tasks that didn't have a lot of variability, and now we're introducing these systems into the industry because the variability can be solved with those solutions?
100%. So, the nice thing about this, FANUC, we want all these guys to succeed because no matter if they're competitors or not, one way or another, we want everyone to succeed in this space because basically what it's doing is it's enabling us to do things that we've never been able to do before. So you're exactly right. When you think about some of the tough problems that are in the warehouse space like parcels and being able to pick the stuff that comes at your doorstep every day, whether it's poly bags or cases or whatever, and they're piled on top of each other and you got to look down at that pile and pick something out of there. And hey, by the way, you got to do it at a really high rate. Mm-hmm. So those are the challenging problems that some of the startups are tackling. And, we're right there with them. We're doing what we can, whether it's helping with the pilot stage all the way to the scale stage, because a lot of times they're looking for that help from somebody that's been in the industry like we have for over 40 years.
I have two questions.
Okay.
First one is on startups. What are you looking for in the startups that you partner with? Because the nature of startups is they're not huge, right? So size isn't necessarily the thing, probably a niche tech solution. But what other characteristics do you look for in the companies where you're like, hey, I think FANUC could work with you guys?
Yeah. I think a couple things. I think it's you can go back, if you look at the 20 years I've spent, you see some of the best integrators in the business, and those are usually the guys that are very focused on what they're doing. They're not the integrator that says, yeah, we can do anything and everything, but they're the integrator that says, this is exactly who we are, and this is who we want to be, and that thing out here doesn't really fit, we're going to move on. Same thing with the startups. I think that the ones that are very focused right now, because you can't do anything and everything, and some of them came out of the universities, and they tried to solve these 4 or 5 different applications, and now they're down to these 3 applications, and then some of them are down to 1 application. Get really good at one thing, and put all your resources and time and effort into it, because there's a clock ticking for those startups, right? They only have so long before they gotta start being profitable.
Don't try, because the companies out there that are trying to solve everything right now, that's a big red flag, because you got to focus on something and pursue that with the short amount of time that you have.
Absolutely. And don't reinvent the wheel, right? I mean, there are a lot of smart startups coming in with great technology. Leverage the stuff that's already out there. Leverage the partnerships in the automation space. These guys can't do it alone. They're going to need partners.
So maybe one final question I have. You talked about the excitement in the space right now. You started by talking about how you've been in this for 20 years. What's one of the coolest applications or one of the neatest new things you've found as you've been working in this space recently?
Well, I'll tell you this. What's interesting is I spent a lot of time with machine vision way back. Years and years ago when, as it got better and better, and when we used to look at some of these applications, we would say, no way, we're not even considering it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you asking me to come out and look at the opportunity, but no way. Now we're seeing them pick, out of a bulk pile, parcels, the parcels that come to your doorstep. They could be shiny, they could be white, they could be dirty, they could be boxes, they could be, Christmas, glitter, and they're picking it, and they're picking it repeatable. So, and consistently. That's exciting, because that's opening up the doors for a lot of things, right? The robot's there. It's a mature technology. The 6-axis robots, you talk to people in manufacturing, they're going to put them out there. They know they can trust them. They're going to be reliable. They're going to be there for a very long time. But the next stage to this revolution in automation is really the vision and the AI technology, and that's what those guys are bringing to the table.
Awesome. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for hopping on the show with us. And, of course, if you want to learn more information, we'll have that later on the show.
Appreciate it. And I've got a Cleveland hat for you.
Oh, man, I don't need that.